Have you ever been humiliated by the person you trusted most, only to be saved by the one man you should fear? The fluorescent lights of Sterling Corp's executive floor felt like spotlights of shame as Elena Martinez stood frozen in the center of the boardroom. 20 pairs of eyes bore into her, but none cut deeper than the smug gaze of her ex-boyfriend, Marcus Chen, who leaned against the wall with his arms crossed and a satisfied smirk playing on his lips. Miss Martinez, her boss, Gerald Hoffman, announced loudly enough for everyone to hear, "Your services are no longer required. Security will escort you out, immediately." Elena's hands trembled as she clutched the financial reports she'd spent 3 sleepless nights preparing. "Mr. Hoffman, I don't understand. These projections saved the company $12 million. Projections you stole from Marcus's original work," Gerald interrupted, gesturing toward her ex. "We have evidence of your creative borrowing." The room erupted in whispers. Elena's blood ran cold as Marcus stepped forward, his expensive suit rustling with each calculated movement. 6 months ago, she'd loved this man. She'd shared her dreams, her strategies, her login passwords. Now she understood exactly what he'd done with that trust. Elena, Marcus said with mock sympathy, shaking his head. "I wanted to give you a chance to resign quietly, but you forced my hand. I found her accessing my files at 2 a.m. last Tuesday," he announced to the room. "The timestamp doesn't lie." That was the night she'd worked late on her own project. The night he'd texted her, asking if she was still at the office. She'd thought he was being caring. He'd been building his alibi. "You lying," Elena started, but Gerald raised his hand. "Enough, this display is embarrassing. Security." As 2 burly guards approached, Elena felt her 5 years at Sterling Corp, her spotless reputation, her entire career crumbling into dust. The other executives wouldn't meet her eyes. Marcus's smirk widened. Then the boardroom doors exploded open. The first thing Elena noticed was the silence. 20 people collectively holding their breath. The second thing was the man standing in the doorway, 6 feet 3 inches of pure danger, wrapped in a Tom Ford suit that probably cost more than her annual salary. Dante Salvatore. Even Elena, who deliberately avoided the society pages, knew that name. Billionaire, casino mogul, and if the whispers were true, the invisible king of an empire that stretched far beyond legal enterprises. His family didn't just influence the city, they owned it. "Gentlemen," Dante said, his voice carrying the slight rasp of someone accustomed to being obeyed without question. "And ladies, what an interesting scene I've walked into." Gerald's face went from red to white in seconds. "Mr. Salvatore, we weren't expecting. This is a private personnel matter." "Private?" Dante's dark eyes swept the room, and Elena could have sworn the temperature dropped 10 degrees. "You're firing one of your top analysts in front of 20 witnesses and calling it private. Interesting strategy, Gerald." He knew her boss's first name. He knew what she did. How? Dante moved into the room with the fluid grace of a predator, his 2 bodyguards flanking him like dark shadows. He pulled out a chair at the head of the table, Gerald's chair, and sat down as if he owned the place. Perhaps he did. "Miss Martinez," Dante said, turning his attention to her for the first time. His eyes were almost black, fathomless and intense. "You're the one who restructured the Meridian account last quarter, correct? The deal everyone said was impossible." Elena's mouth went dry. "Yes, but—" "And you found the discrepancy in the Harrington merger that saved Sterling Corp from a lawsuit." "How do you know that?" Gerald sputtered. Dante ignored him entirely, keeping his gaze fixed on Elena. "I make it my business to know who has real talent in this city. Tell me, Miss Martinez, did you steal Mr. Chen's work?" Every eye turned to her. This was it, her reputation, her future, balanced on the edge of a knife. Marcus shifted nervously, his confidence finally cracking. "No," Elena said firmly. "Marcus has access to my computer. He used my login credentials while I was working late. The timestamps he's referencing are from when I was in the building, but I was in the analytics lab on the 12th floor. The security cameras will prove it." The security footage from that night was corrupted, Gerald said quickly. Too quickly. Dante's lips curved into something that definitely wasn't a smile. How convenient and expensive. Corrupting digital security footage requires either exceptional skill or exceptional payment. He pulled out his phone and made a call. Vincent, Sterling Corp security footage last Tuesday, 2 a.m. I want the backup server files. You have 10 minutes. Gerald looked like he might be sick. Marcus had gone pale. Mr. Salvatore, Gerald tried again. With all due respect, you have no authority here. No authority? Dante stood, buttoning his jacket. Gerald, I own 40% of this company's shares through various holdings. I bought them this morning. Would you like to see the paperwork, or would you prefer to keep your job? The room erupted into chaos. Elena felt dizzy. 40%. He'd bought 40% of Sterling Corp in one morning. Dante walked toward her, and the crowd parted instinctively. Up close, he was even more devastating, sharp cheekbones, a jaw that could cut glass, and eyes that seemed to see straight through her. Miss Martinez, he said quietly, so only she could hear, you have two choices. You can let these men destroy you, or you can walk out of here with me. I'm offering you a position as my personal financial analyst. Triple your current salary, but you need to decide now. I don't understand, Elena whispered. Why would you? Because talent like yours is rare, and watching it be crushed by mediocre men offends me. His voice was still low, intimate. And because I've been watching you for 3 months, Elena, I know exactly what you're capable of. He'd been watching her. The revelation should have frightened her. Instead, she felt something dangerous spark to life in her chest. The footage, one of Dante's men announced, entering the room with a laptop. Recovered from the backup server. They played it on the boardroom screen. There was Elena, clear as day, working in the analytics lab on the 12th floor at 2:03 a.m. And there, in a different window, was someone accessing her computer on the 9th floor at 2:07 a.m. The camera angle was perfect, Marcus's face in sharp focus as he typed away at her station. You bastard, Elena breathed. Marcus lunged toward the laptop. That's fake, he fabricated. Dante moved so fast Elena barely saw it. One moment Marcus was reaching for the computer, the next. He was pressed against the wall, with Dante's forearm across his throat. Careful, Dante said softly, dangerously. I don't appreciate thieves, and I especially don't appreciate men who steal from women they claim to love. You can't prove, Marcus choked out. I can prove everything. Your gambling debts, the money you borrowed from the Kozlov family, the fact that you needed a major win at this company to pay them back. Dante leaned in closer. Did you really think I wouldn't find out? In this city, nothing happens without my knowledge. He released Marcus, who slumped against the wall, gasping. Dante turned to Gerald. You have a choice, too. Fire Mr. Chen for corporate espionage, or I'll make sure every media outlet in the city knows that Sterling Corp punishes its innovators and rewards its thieves. Your call. Gerald opened and closed his mouth like a fish. Mr. Chen, you're terminated. Effective immediately. Get out. As security dragged a protesting Marcus away, Dante extended his hand to Elena. Shall we? Elena looked at his hand. Manicured nails, expensive watch, subtle scars on the knuckles that told stories she wasn't sure she wanted to know. This man was dangerous. He was connected to things she'd spent her whole life avoiding. But he'd also just saved her career, her reputation, and possibly her life. She took his hand. His fingers closed around hers, warm and strong, and for the first time in 6 months, Elena felt like she could breathe again. Good choice, Dante murmured as he led her out of the boardroom, away from the whispers and the stares. Trust me, Miss Martinez, your life just became infinitely more interesting. Dante's car was exactly what Elena expected, a sleek black Mercedes with bulletproof windows and leather seats softer than her bed. What she didn't expect was the way her hands wouldn't stop shaking as they pulled away from Sterling Corp. Breathe, Dante said from beside her. You're safe. Safe, Elena let out a hysterical laugh. I just lost my job, discovered my ex-boyfriend tried to destroy my career, and got into a car with a man who owns casinos as a front for. She stopped, realizing what she'd almost said. Dante's lips twitched. For what, Miss Martinez? Nothing, forget it. You were going to say for his criminal empire, weren't you? He didn't sound offended. If anything, he sounded amused. The rumors aren't entirely inaccurate. Elena's head whipped toward him. You're admitting. I'm admitting nothing, but I'm also not insulting your intelligence by pretending to be something I'm not. He pulled out his phone, typed something, then looked at her directly. My family has diverse business interests. Some legitimate, some existing in gray areas, some that would make you uncomfortable. But I didn't save you to drag you into that world. I saved you because you're brilliant, and I need someone I can trust to analyze my legal holdings. And why would you trust me? We just met. Did we? Dante's dark eyes glinted with something Elena couldn't quite read. You don't remember, do you? Remember what? 3 years ago, the Meridian Charity Gala. You were there with your company, and I was there representing my family's foundation. You spilled champagne on my Armani tuxedo. Elena's mind raced back. The gala, the crowded ballroom. She'd been juggling 2 glasses, trying to impress her bosses, and she'd turned directly into a man who... Oh, God. That was you, her face burned. I apologized like 50 times. 53, Dante corrected with a slight smile. And you offered to pay for the dry cleaning with money you clearly didn't have. Most people in that room wouldn't have apologized at all. They would have assumed I could afford another tuxedo. You can afford another tuxedo. That's not the point. You treated me like a person, not a name or a reputation. That's rare in my world. He shifted toward her, and Elena was suddenly very aware of how close they were. Then I started noticing your work. Every major deal Sterling Corp closed, every crisis averted, your fingerprints were all over them. But you never took credit. You stayed in the background. I'm not good at office politics. No, you're good at the work. There's a difference. The car pulled up to a towering glass building that overlooked the harbor. Welcome to Salvatore Tower. Top 3 floors are my private offices. This is where you'll work. Elena stared up at the building. This morning, she'd woken up expecting a normal day. Now she was being offered a job by a man who made her nervous and intrigued in equal measure. I need to think about this, she said. Of course, take the weekend. But Elena... He waited until she met his eyes. Marcus didn't just steal your work. He's been feeding your strategies to Sterling's competitors for months. The only reason the company hasn't collapsed is because your innovations were brilliant enough to overcome his sabotage. If you go back to that world, they'll bury you. Not because you're not talented, but because you make them look bad by comparison. The truth in his words hit her like a physical blow. She'd always wondered why her male colleagues advanced while she stayed in the same position despite her successes. Now she knew. Why do you care? Elena asked quietly. Really, what do you get out of this? Dante was silent for a long moment. My father built his empire on loyalty and fear. I'm trying to build mine on something different. Talent, intelligence, trust. He opened the car door. I think you could be part of that, but it has to be your choice. As Elena stepped out of the car, Dante caught her wrist gently. One more thing. Marcus borrowed money from dangerous people. People I'm not associated with, which means I can't protect him from the consequences. He's going to become desperate. Don't be alone for the next few days. Here. He handed her a business card with a single phone number embossed in silver. That's my private line, day or night. If anything feels wrong, you call me. Understood? Elena nodded, clutching the card. As the Mercedes pulled away, she looked down at the number and realized her hands had stopped shaking. For the first time since walking into that boardroom, she felt like maybe, just maybe, she was going to be okay. Elena spent the weekend in her apartment, researching Dante Salvatore. What she found was a carefully curated image of a legitimate businessman, casinos, hotels, real estate development. But between the lines, in the whispers of true crime forums and deleted articles, she found something else entirely. The Salvatore family had run organized crime in the city for 3 generations. Dante's grandfather had been a notorious mob boss. His father had been even more ruthless, though he'd hidden it behind charitable foundations and political connections. And Dante. The articles described him as the most dangerous Salvatore yet, not because he was more violent, but because he was smarter. He'd taken the family's operations and made them almost untraceable, wrapped them in layers of legitimate business until no one could prove anything. 3 times, federal investigators had tried to build cases against him. 3 times, the cases had fallen apart due to lack of evidence. Elena should have been terrified. Instead, she kept thinking about the way he'd stood up for her in that boardroom. The way his eyes had softened when he mentioned the charity gala. The way his hand had felt around hers, protective, not possessive. She was still thinking about it on Monday morning when her apartment buzzer rang. "Package for Martinez," a gruff voice announced. Elena wasn't expecting anything, but she buzzed the delivery person up. When she opened the door, she found a tall man in a black suit holding a manila envelope. "From Mr. Salvatore," he said, handing it over. "He suggested you read it before making your decision." Before she could respond, the man was gone. Inside the envelope, Elena found a contract, surprisingly straightforward for something involving Dante Salvatore. Competitive salary, full benefits, clear job description, nothing sinister. Just an offer to be his senior financial analyst. There was also a note in bold, slashing handwriting. "Elena, I promised you transparency. Inside this envelope is also a full disclosure of my family's legal troubles, current investigations, and potential risks to anyone associated with me professionally. Read it all. If you still want the job, it's yours. If not, I'll make sure you have protection until the Marcus situation is resolved. The choice is always yours." A day. Elena spent 3 hours reading through the documents. Dante hadn't exaggerated, it was all there. The federal investigations, the accusations, the suspicious deaths that had never been proven to connect to his family. But there was also something else. In the past 5 years since Dante had taken over, violent crime associated with the Salvatore family had dropped by 70%. Drug trafficking charges had disappeared entirely. The family's legitimate businesses had tripled in value. He was cleaning up his family's legacy, one careful step at a time. Elena was reaching for her phone to call him when someone knocked on her door. Hard. "Elena, open up, I know you're in there." "Marcus." Her blood turned to ice. She looked through the peephole and saw him, disheveled, desperate, his eyes wild with panic. "Elena, please, they're going to kill me, I need money. The Kozlovs are going to." She backed away from the door, reaching for her phone. Her hands shook as she pulled up Dante's number. He answered on the first ring. "Elena." "Marcus is here," she whispered. "At my apartment, he's—" "Lock yourself in your bedroom. Now, I'm 10 minutes away." "How are you?" "I've had someone watching your building since Friday. Move. Bedroom, lock the door." Elena ran, her heart pounding. Behind her, she heard Marcus start kicking at her front door. The wood splintered. "He's breaking in," she gasped, turning the bedroom lock. 7 minutes, Dante said, and she could hear a car engine roaring in the background. "Talk to me, keep talking." "I read the contract," Elena said, pressing herself against the far wall as she heard Marcus ransacking her living room. "The disclosure documents, all of it. And I think you're either the most honest criminal I've ever heard of, or you're playing a very long game." "Maybe both." The engine noise intensified. 5 minutes, is he trying the bedroom door? As if on cue, Marcus started pounding on it. "Elena, I know you have money saved, your grandmother's inheritance. I just need 50,000. They'll let me live if I give them 50,000. "He wants my grandmother's inheritance," Elena said, anger mixing with her fear. "The money I was saving for." "For your sister's medical treatments," Dante finished. "I know he's not getting it 4 minutes." "How do you know about my sister?" "I told you, Elena. I've been watching you for months. I know you send half your paycheck to cover her medications. I know you eat ramen for dinner so she can have her treatments. I know you're the strongest person I've ever met." Something in his voice made her chest ache. This man, this dangerous, powerful man saw her, really saw her. 3 minutes, Dante continued. My men are in the building, but Elena, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. What? When this is over, when you're safe, are you going to run from me? Because I need to know now. I need to know if I should keep my distance or if... He trailed off, but Elena heard everything he didn't say in that silence. Or if what? She whispered. Or if you feel this too. This thing between us. I've been trying to stay professional, to give you space, but Elena, the moment I saw you in that boardroom, fighting to defend yourself against men who didn't deserve to breathe the same air. The bedroom door shuddered. Marcus was throwing his shoulder against it. 2 minutes, Dante said, and his voice had gone cold, deadly. Stay away from the door. Dante, Elena said quickly, I'm not running, I'm not afraid of you. I'm afraid of myself around you. What does that mean? It means I've never felt this way about anyone. Not even Marcus when we were together. It means you terrify me in the best possible way, and I... The bedroom door crashed open. Marcus stood there, wild-eyed and desperate, holding a knife from her kitchen. Get off the phone, he snarled. 1 minute, Dante said in her ear. Keep him talking. Marcus, please, Elena said, keeping the phone pressed to her ear. You don't want to do this. I loved you, Marcus shouted, advancing into the room. I gave you everything. You stole from me. You tried to ruin me. Because you were going to leave me anyway. You were always too good for me, looking down on me. I never looked down on you. I just wanted you to be honest. Honest? Marcus laughed bitterly. Honest doesn't pay gambling debts. Honest doesn't keep Russian mobsters from breaking your legs. I needed that promotion, that bonus, and you were in my way. Elena heard crashing sounds from her living room. Marcus spun toward the noise just as 3 men in black suits burst through the remains of her front door. But it was Dante who reached Marcus first. Elena had never seen anyone move that fast. One moment Dante was in the doorway. The next, the knife was clattering across the floor, and Marcus was on his knees with Dante's hand wrapped around his throat. You broke into her home, Dante said softly. You threatened her. You tried to take the money she saved for her dying sister. I wasn't. SHH, Dante's grip tightened. I'm going to give you a choice, Marcus, the same choice I gave Elena. You can let me handle your debt with the Kozlovs, which I'll do because despite everything. Elena once cared about you, and I won't have your death on her conscience. Or you can refuse, and I'll let them find you. What's it going to be? Marcus was crying now, pathetic and broken. Please, please, I don't want to die. Then you're going to disappear. New city, new name, new life. My people will set it up. But if you ever, and I mean ever, try to contact Elena again, the Kozlovs will be the least of your problems. Understand? Marcus nodded frantically. Dante released him and gestured to his men. Get him out of here, set up the relocation, and make sure the Kozlovs understand his debt is settled. As they dragged Marcus away, Dante finally turned to Elena. His expression shifted from cold fury to concern in an instant. Are you hurt? No, Elena's legs gave out. Dante caught her before she hit the floor, pulling her against his chest. He was solid and warm, and she could feel his heart pounding as hard as hers. I've got you, he murmured into her hair. I've got you, Elena, you're safe now. She should have pulled away, maintained professional distance. But instead, she found herself clinging to him, breathing in his cologne, something expensive and woodsy that made her dizzy. You saved me, she whispered. Again. I'll always save you. Dante pulled back enough to look at her face, his dark eyes intense. That's what you need to understand. From now on, anyone who threatens you threatens me. Anyone who hurts you will answer to me. I know it's fast, I know it's crazy, but Elena, I can't. She kissed him. It was impulsive and reckless and absolutely insane, but Elena didn't care. She'd spent her whole life being careful, being professional, playing by the rules. And where had it gotten her? Betrayed, humiliated, attacked in her own home. Dante made a surprised sound against her lips, then pulled her closer, deepening the kiss. His hand cradled the back of her head like she was something precious, something worth protecting. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Dante rested his forehead against hers. "Does this mean you're taking the job?" he asked, a hint of humor in his voice. Elena laughed, actually laughed despite everything. "It means I'm taking a chance on you, Dante Salvatore. God help me." "I'll be worth it," he promised. "I swear to you, Elena, I'll be worth the risk." 2 weeks later, Elena sat in her new office on the top floor of Salvatore Tower, reviewing contracts for Dante's latest hotel acquisition. The space was ridiculous, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the harbor, furniture that probably cost more than her old car, and enough security to protect a small country. But it was the man standing in her doorway that made it impossible to concentrate. "You're starring," Dante said with amusement. "You're distracting," Elena countered, not looking up from her papers. "Some of us are trying to work." "It's 8 p.m. You've been here since 6 this morning." "So have you." "Fair point." Dante walked into her office, loosening his tie. The gesture shouldn't have been as attractive as it was. "Dinner." "I should finish." "Elena," he waited until she looked at him. "You've completed more work in 2 weeks than my last analyst did in 6 months. You found cost savings I didn't know existed. You've restructured 3 deals that were about to fall apart. You can take 2 hours for dinner." She wanted to say yes. God, she wanted to say yes. But the past 2 weeks had been confusing. At work, Dante was professional, demanding, brilliant. But there were moments, lingering glances, accidental touches, conversations that lasted long past midnight, where the tension between them became almost unbearable. Since the kiss in her apartment, they hadn't discussed what was happening between them. Elena didn't know if that was intentional or if Dante was giving her space to adjust to her new life. "Is this a work dinner or a personal dinner?" she asked carefully. Dante's expression softened. "Which would you prefer?" "I don't know. This is complicated, Dante. You're my boss. You're connected to things I don't fully understand. And You feel it too," he finished. "This thing between us that gets stronger every day." Elena stood, moving toward the window. The city spread out below them, a galaxy of lights in the darkness. "I spent 5 years with Marcus and never felt the way I feel when you walk into a room. That terrifies me." "Why?" "Because people like me don't end up with people like you. In every movie, every story, the girl who falls for the dangerous man either gets her heart broken or gets killed. I'm trying to be realistic here." She heard him move behind her, felt the warmth of his presence at her back. "What if I told you I've never felt this way about anyone? That I've spent my entire adult life keeping people at arm's length because trust is dangerous in my world. But with you, I don't want distance. What if I told you that I think about you constantly, that I check the security feeds just to see you working, that I've memorized the way you bite your lip when you're concentrating?" Elena turned, and he was right there, close enough to touch. "What if I told you the same things?" "Then I'd say we have a problem." Dante's lips curved into a half-smile. "Because I promised myself I'd let you make this choice without pressure. I told myself I'd be patient, give you time, let you see that I'm more than my reputation. But Elena, my patience is running out." "What does that mean?" "It means I'm standing here, trying to be professional, when what I want to do is kiss you until you forget every doubt in your head. It means I'm terrified that if I push too hard, you'll run, but if I don't push at all, you'll convince yourself this is just gratitude or proximity or anything except what it actually is." "And what is it?" Elena whispered. "You tell me. You're the one with a degree in analytics. Analyze us." Elena took a shaky breath. "The data suggests that we're compatible intellectually, professionally, and based on that kiss, physically. The data also suggests that relationships with significant power imbalances and dangerous external factors have a high failure rate." "Screw the data," Dante said roughly. "What does your heart say?" Her heart said she was already in love with him, which was impossible after only 2 weeks, except it wasn't really 2 weeks. It was 3 years since a charity gala. It was months of him watching her work, learning her patterns, seeing her value. It was the way he defended her without expecting anything in return. It was 1,000 small moments that added up to something terrifying and wonderful. My heart says I'm in trouble, Elena admitted. Good. Dante reached up, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. The gesture was so tender it made her ache. I've been in trouble since you spilled champagne on me and looked mortified instead of entitled. That's a low bar. You'd be surprised how many people fail to clear it. His thumb traced her cheekbone. Elena, I'm going to tell you something and I need you to really hear it. I don't care about the power imbalance. You say jump, I'll jump. You want something, I'll move heaven and earth to give it to you. You're not working for me, you're working with me. We're partners in this, in everything, if you'll let us be. And the dangerous external factors. I'll protect you from all of them. I'll protect your sister, your family, anyone you care about. That's what you need to understand about my world, Elena. Yes, it's dangerous. Yes, there are risks. But I have the power to keep you safe in a way most people couldn't even imagine. He leaned in, his lips brushing her ear. The question is, do you trust me enough to let me? Elena's hands found his chest, feeling his heart racing beneath her palms. This was the moment. The choice. Stay safe, stay alone, or take the leap with a man who was all wrong in every logical way and absolutely perfect in every way that mattered. I trust you, she said. God help me, Dante, I trust you completely. The kiss was different this time, slower, deeper, full of promise instead of desperation. Dante's hands framed her face like she was made of glass, and Elena melted into him, letting go of every fear, every doubt, every logical reason this was a terrible idea. When they finally broke apart, Dante rested his forehead against hers, both of them breathing hard. So, he said with a slight rasp, about that dinner. Elena laughed, genuine and bright. Personal, definitely personal. Good, because I'm taking you to my family's estate. My mother has been demanding to meet the woman who's had me distracted for weeks. Your mother? Elena's eyes widened. Dante, I'm not ready to. She's harmless, I promise. She runs a flower shop in Little Italy and pretends to know nothing about the family business. You'll love her. And if she doesn't like me? Dante's expression turned serious.
Then I'll remind her that you're the first person I've brought home in 8 years, and if she wants grandchildren someday, she'll be on her best behavior. Elena's breath caught. Grandchildren? We haven't even had a first date. Consider this the first date. And for the record, I plan on there being many, many more. He pulled her close again, his voice dropping to that dangerous register that made her knees weak. I'm in this, Elena. All the way. Are you? She thought about her old life, safe, predictable, ultimately meaningless. Then she thought about the past 2 weeks, challenging, exciting, filled with possibility. She thought about the way Dante looked at her like she'd hung the moon. The way he'd protected her without making her feel weak. The way he made her want to be brave. I'm in, she said. All the way. Dante's family estate was not what Elena expected. She'd imagined something ostentatious, marble columns, gaudy decorations, the kind of wealth that screamed instead of whispered. Instead, the Salvatore home was an elegant brownstone in a quiet neighborhood, with flower boxes in the windows and warm lights spilling from every room. This is where the feared Salvatore crime family lives? Elena asked as Dante helped her out of the car. My mother refused to move after my father died. She said she raised her children here and no amount of money would make her leave her garden. He squeezed her hand. Fair warning, she's going to love you. And once Maria Salvatore loves you, you're family forever. There's no escaping it. Before Elena could respond, the front door flew open and a tiny woman with silver-streaked dark hair rushed out, already talking rapidly in Italian. She grabbed Dante's face, kissed both his cheeks, then turned to Elena with eyes that were shockingly kind. So you're the one, Maria said in lightly accented English. The one who has my son checking his phone every 5 minutes and smiling at nothing. Mama, Dante protested, but his ears were red. Hush. Tesoro. I'm allowed to embarrass you. It's in the mother handbook. Maria took Elena's hands, studying her with the intensity of someone who saw far more than she should. You have kind eyes. Good. Dante needs someone kind. He pretends to be so hard, but inside, he's still my sweet boy. I'm standing right here, Dante muttered. Yes, and you're blocking the door. Inside, both of you. I made lasagna. Dinner was chaos in the best possible way. Maria had invited Dante's younger sister, Isabella, who worked as a lawyer and had no patience for her brother's protective tendencies. She'd also invited their cousin Marco, who ran security for the family businesses and spent the entire meal trying to embarrass Dante with childhood stories. And then, Marco said, wiping tears of laughter, 10-year-old Dante decided he was going to negotiate with the kids who were bullying Izzy. He showed up with a briefcase full of his baseball cards and offered them a deal: stop bothering his sister, and they could have his entire collection. They took the cards, Isabella added with a grin, and he beat them up anyway the next day. They broke the agreement, Dante said calmly, though Elena could see him fighting a smile. I had to send a message about contract violations. Maria shook her head fondly. Even then, he was protecting people. Just like his nonna always said, Dante has the heart of a lion and the stubbornness of his father. Tell me about his father, Elena said before she could stop herself. The table went quiet. Maria's expression softened with old grief. Antonio was complicated. He built an empire, yes, but he also made enemies. When Dante was 19, one of those enemies decided to send a message. She reached over and squeezed her son's hand. My husband died protecting a family who worked for us. He could have run, but he didn't. And Dante, my beautiful boy, had to become a man overnight. Had to take over everything while I was drowning in grief and Isabella was still in high school. Elena looked at Dante, seeing him differently now. The weight he carried, the darkness in his eyes, it wasn't just power. It was responsibility, grief, sacrifice. He's been protecting us ever since, Isabella said quietly. Even when we don't want him to. Even when it costs him. What did it cost him? Elena asked. His 20s, Marco answered. While everyone else was partying, dating, living, Dante was cleaning up his father's mess. Turning illegal operations legitimate. Making peace with rival families. He barely slept for 5 years. That's enough, Dante said firmly, but not unkindly. Elena didn't come here for my tragic backstory. Actually, Elena said, covering his hand with hers, I want to know everything. If we're doing this, really doing this, I need to understand who you are. All of it. Dante studied her face for a long moment, then nodded. After dinner. We'll talk. They ended up in the garden behind the house, surrounded by Maria's roses and the soft glow of string lights. Elena sat on a stone bench while Dante paced, his hands in his pockets, looking more vulnerable than she'd ever seen him. My father was not a good man, Dante began. He was loyal to family, generous to those who served him, but he was also violent, ruthless, and paranoid. He made enemies the way other people make small talk. When he died, I inherited a war I didn't start and businesses built on blood. So you changed things, Elena said. I tried. God, I tried. I cut ties with the drug trade completely, lost millions doing it, but I didn't care. I refused to get involved in human trafficking, which made enemies of families who profited from it. I invested in legitimate businesses, hired lawyers instead of hitmen, chose negotiation over violence whenever possible. But not always. No, Dante admitted, turning to face her. Not always. There are still people who only understand force. People who see mercy as weakness. And when they threaten my family, my people, when they cross certain lines. He trailed off, his jaw tight. I'm not a good man either, Elena. I've done things that would horrify you. Things I can't take back. Elena stood, walking over to him. Do you regret them? Some of them. Others. He met her eyes. Others I'd do again to keep the people I love safe. Tell me the worst thing, Elena said. The thing you think will make me run. Dante was silent for a long moment. 3 years ago, a rival family kidnapped Marco's daughter. She was 6 years old. They wanted money, territory, control. I gave them a deadline to return her unharmed. And they didn't meet the deadline. They sent us her favorite toy as proof they had her. His voice was flat, emotionless, which somehow made it worse. I found where they were keeping her. I went there with my men. I got her out safely. And the people who took her didn't survive the night. Dante's eyes were hard, unrepentant. Every single person involved in her kidnapping is dead, Elena. I made sure of it. And I slept perfectly well afterward. Elena should have been horrified. Instead, she thought about Dante as a 10-year-old with a briefcase, protecting his sister. She thought about him taking over his father's empire at 19 to protect his family. She thought about the way he'd stood up for her in that boardroom. Good, she said simply. Dante blinked. Good. They kidnapped a 6-year-old child. They traumatized her, terrorized her family. Whatever you did to them, they deserved it. Elena stepped closer. I'm not naive, Dante. I know the world isn't black and white. I know good people sometimes have to do terrible things. And I know that you, despite everything, are fundamentally good. How can you possibly? Because I see you, Elena interrupted. The way you protected me when you had no reason to. The way you treat your mother with such gentleness. The way Marco's daughter, who you saved, still draws you pictures that your assistant puts on your office wall even though you pretend not to notice. You're not your father, Dante. You're better. Dante pulled her into his arms so suddenly she gasped. I don't deserve you, he murmured against her hair. Too bad. You're stuck with me now. He pulled back enough to kiss her, soft and reverent and full of unspoken promises. When they broke apart, Elena could see stars reflected in his dark eyes. I'm in love with you, Dante said. I know it's too soon, I know it's insane, but Elena, I'm completely in love with you. Elena's heart soared. Then we're both insane. Because I'm in love with you too. The next 3 months were the happiest of Elena's life. She thrived at work, restructuring Dante's holdings and finding innovative solutions to complex problems. She grew close to Isabella, who became the sister she'd always wanted. Maria taught her to make authentic Italian pasta and told her embarrassing stories about Dante's childhood. And Dante was everything. Protective but not controlling. Passionate but respectful. He took her to charity galas where she wore designer gowns and met people who shaped the city. He also took her to tiny restaurants in Little Italy where they shared pasta and talked for hours about everything and nothing. Elena's sister, Carmen, who'd been skeptical at first, eventually admitted that she'd never seen Elena so happy. The medical treatments were working, and Carmen was getting stronger every day. Everything was perfect. Which is why Elena should have known something would go wrong. It started with small things. A car following her to work. Hang-up calls on her personal phone. The feeling of being watched. Elena told herself she was being paranoid, but when she mentioned it to Dante, his expression turned to stone. How long? He demanded. A week, maybe? It's probably nothing. It's not nothing. Dante was already pulling out his phone, barking orders to Marco. Double security on Elena and her sister. I want eyes on them 24/7. And find out who's watching her. Dante, you're overreacting. Someone threatened you once already. I won't let it happen again. He pulled her close, his heart racing beneath her palm. Promise me you'll be careful. Promise me you won't go anywhere alone. I promise, Elena said, though she still thought he was being excessive. She was wrong. 2 days later, Elena was working late when her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Elena Martinez. A woman's voice, cold and professional. Who is this? Someone who wants to give you advice. Leave Dante Salvatore. Go back to your old life. Forget you ever met him. Elena's blood ran cold. What are you talking about? The Kozlov family hasn't forgotten that Dante interfered with their business regarding Marcus Chen. They've been watching, waiting for an opportunity to respond. You're that opportunity. Is this a threat? It's a warning. Dante has enemies, Miss Martinez. Powerful ones. Stay with him, and you'll become collateral damage. We're offering you a way out. Take your sister and leave the city. We'll provide new identities, money to start over. All you have to do is disappear. And if I refuse? Then we can't protect you from what's coming. The line went dead. Elena sat frozen, her mind racing. This was real. The danger Dante had warned her about wasn't hypothetical. It was immediate, active, targeting her specifically. She should have been terrified. Instead, she was furious. These people thought she was weak. They thought she'd run at the first sign of trouble. They thought they could use her to hurt Dante. They were wrong. Elena grabbed her phone and called Dante. "We need to talk. Now." 20 minutes later, Dante burst into her office with Marco and Isabella behind him. His eyes scanned her frantically. "Are you hurt? What happened?" Elena told them about the call. With each word, Dante's expression grew darker until he looked like the dangerous man the city whispered about, the one who made enemies disappear. "The Kozlovs," he said, his voice deadly calm. "They've been quiet for months. I should have known they were planning something." "This is my fault," Marco said, running a hand through his hair. "I handled the Marca situation. I should have." "This isn't anyone's fault except the Kozlovs," Elena interrupted. "And I'm not running." 3 pairs of eyes turned to her. "Elena," Dante said carefully, "you don't understand what you're saying. The Kozlov family doesn't make empty threats. If they've targeted you, they'll follow through. Then we deal with them first." "We?" Isabella raised an eyebrow. "You realize dealing with them isn't a negotiation, right?" "I realize exactly what it means," Elena said firmly. "And I'm not leaving Dante to face this alone. You want me to run? Fine. But I'm running toward the problem, not away from it." Dante moved to her side, gripping her shoulders. "Elena, listen to me. I can protect you, but only if you let me. That means staying somewhere safe, surrounded by security, until this is resolved." "How long will that take?" He hesitated. "Weeks. Maybe months." "And what happens to my work? To my sister? To us?" Elena shook her head. "I didn't fall in love with you so I could hide in a safe house while you fight my battles." "Then what do you suggest?" Dante asked, though his eyes said he already knew he'd lost this argument. Elena took a deep breath. "You said your family is built on loyalty now, not fear. Prove it. Call a meeting with the Kozlovs. I'll be there. We'll show them I'm not some helpless pawn, I'm your partner. And partners don't hide." Marco whistled low. "She's either very brave or very crazy." "Both," Isabella said with approval. "I like her." Dante pulled Elena aside, away from the others. "You don't know what you're asking for. These meetings can turn violent in seconds. If something goes wrong..." "If something goes wrong, I trust you to protect me," Elena said simply. "Dante, you can't keep me in a bubble. Either I'm part of your world or I'm not. You decide." He stared at her for a long moment, conflict warring in his expression. Finally, he nodded. "You're part of my world. But we do this my way, with my rules." "Agreed." "Agreed." The meeting was held in neutral territory, a private room in one of Dante's casinos, swept for weapons and surveillance. Elena wore a burgundy dress that Isabella had picked out, elegant and professional with a hint of defiance. Dante stayed close to her side, his hand resting possessively on her lower back. The Kozlovs arrived with their own security. Viktor Kozlov, the family patriarch, was a man in his 60s with cold blue eyes and a reputation for cruelty. His son, Alexei, stood beside him, younger, arrogant, and according to Marco's briefing, responsible for most of the family's violent operations. "Salvatore," Victor said, his accent thick. "You requested this meeting. We are here out of respect for your father's memory, not because we fear you." "Then you're fools," Dante replied calmly. "But I didn't ask you here to trade threats. I asked you here to discuss Miss Martinez." Victor's gaze slid to Elena, and she forced herself to meet his eyes without flinching. "The accountant. Yes, we've taken an interest in her." "That ends tonight," Dante said. "Elena is under my protection. Threatening her is the same as threatening me." "Is it?" Alexei stepped forward, sneering. "We thought she was just your latest distraction. Didn't realize you were serious about the bookkeeper." "Financial analyst," Elena corrected before she could stop herself. "And I'm standing right here, so you can address me directly." The room went silent. Even Dante tensed beside her. But Elena was done being treated like an object in someone else's game. Victor's eyebrows rose. You have spirit. I can see why Dante is interested. But spirit doesn't stop bullets, Miss Martinez. Neither does bravado, Elena replied, channeling every ounce of confidence she'd learned in corporate boardrooms. You wanted to use me to hurt Dante. That strategy failed the moment I refused to be intimidated. So now you have two choices: accept that I'm not going anywhere and move on, or continue this vendetta and face the consequences. Consequences? Alexei laughed. What consequences? You think you scare us? No, Elena said. But I think Dante does. And I think you're smart enough to know that going to war over Marcus Chen, a man who isn't even in this city anymore, is a waste of your resources. Victor studied her with new interest. You researched us. Of course I did. I know your family's primary income comes from import-export businesses that operate in grey legal areas. I know you've been trying to expand into Dante's territory for years with limited success. And I know that your partnership with the Volkov family in Brighton Beach is already strained after the incident last year involving their shipment. She saw Victor's eyes narrow. She'd hit a nerve. Here's what I propose, Elena continued, her heart pounding but her voice steady. Dante has legitimate shipping contracts that could benefit from your distribution network. A partnership instead of a conflict. You get access to legal channels that improve your businesses. Dante gets reliable partners for East Coast operations. And both families avoid a war that would attract federal attention neither of you wants. You think you can negotiate with us? Alexei scoffed. I think I just did, Elena replied. But if you'd rather continue making threats against me, go ahead. Just remember that every resource you spend on this vendetta is a resource your competitors can exploit. Dante's hand tightened on her back, pride or warning, she couldn't tell. Marco was grinning openly. Isabella looked like she wanted to applaud. Victor was silent for a long moment, then turned to his son. Leave us. All of you. The security teams filed out reluctantly. Dante started to protest, but Victor raised a hand. Just you, Dante, and Miss Martinez. We talk like civilized people, yes? Once they were alone, Victor's demeanor shifted slightly. Your father would have never allowed a woman at a negotiation table. My father started unnecessary wars and died before he was 60, Dante said flatly. I prefer Elena's approach. Victor chuckled. Smart boy. He looked at Elena. You really researched the Volkov situation? I research everything. It's my job. And this partnership idea, you can make it work. Elena pulled out her tablet, grateful she'd prepared for this possibility. I've already drafted preliminary structures. Dante's shipping company has contracts with 3 major retailers. Your distribution network could handle the East Coast routes, reducing his costs and increasing your legitimate business profile. Everyone profits, and it's completely legal. Victor reviewed the documents, his expression unreadable. Finally, he looked up. Marcus Chen owed us money. That debt doesn't disappear. Dante covered it, Elena said. Consider it the first payment for this partnership. You're paying us to stop threatening you. We're investing in a business relationship that benefits everyone, Elena corrected. There's a difference. Victor laughed, a genuine sound that surprised everyone. You have steel in your spine, Miss Martinez. Dante, you have good taste. He stood, extending his hand. We have a deal. The partnership happens, and we leave your woman alone. But if she ever wants a job, she calls me first. Not a chance, Dante said, shaking his hand anyway. Elena's mine. Later, in the car heading back to Elena's apartment, Dante pulled her into his lap despite Marco driving and Isabella sitting across from them. That was the most terrifying and impressive thing I've ever watched, he murmured against her hair. You negotiated with the Kozlov family like you were discussing stock portfolios. I was terrified, Elena admitted. But I wasn't going to let them see it. You were magnificent. Dante tilted her chin up, his eyes intense. But Elena, never, and I mean never, put yourself in danger like that again without discussing it with me first. You would have tried to talk me out of it. Exactly. Elena kissed him softly. I'm your partner, remember? That means I get a say in how we handle threats. Besides, it worked. This time, Dante said. But there will be others. There are always others in my world. Then we'll handle them together, Elena said firmly. That's what partners do. Isabella made a gagging sound. You two are disgustingly cute. I'm going to need so much therapy. Marco laughed from the driver's seat. Just wait until the wedding. Dante's going to be unbearable. The word wedding hung in the air. Elena felt Dante tense beneath her, then deliberately relax. Speaking of which, Dante said casually, too casually, I've been meaning to ask you something, Elena. Her heart started pounding. What? He shifted her off his lap, then, impossibly, got down on one knee in the moving car. From his pocket, he produced a small velvet box. Dante, Elena breathed. I had a speech planned, he said, opening the box to reveal a stunning diamond ring with sapphire accents. Something about how you changed my life, how I can't imagine facing another day without you, how you make me want to be better than I am. But the truth is simpler than that. He took her hand. Elena Martinez, I love you more than I thought I could love anything. You're my partner, my equal, my future. Will you marry me? Elena was crying, though she hadn't realized when the tears started. Yes. Yes, of course yes. The ring slid onto her finger perfectly, because of course Dante had somehow figured out her size. He pulled her down for a kiss that would have been inappropriate if Isabella hadn't started cheering and Marco hadn't started honking the horn. Finally! Isabella exclaimed. I've been planning this wedding in my head for 2 months. 2 months. Elena laughed through her tears. We've only been together for 3. I knew after 2 weeks, Dante said simply, pulling her back into his arms. The rest was just paperwork. 6 months later, Elena stood in front of a mirror in Maria's house, wearing a wedding dress that felt like a dream. It was elegant and understated, ivory lace with delicate beading, a style that was pure sophistication without trying too hard. You look like a princess, Carmen said from the doorway, tears in her eyes. Elena's sister had gained weight, her skin had color again, and the treatments were working better than anyone had hoped. Dante's going to lose his mind. He's already lost his mind, Isabella said, adjusting Elena's veil. He's called Marco 6 times this morning to make sure everything's perfect. 7, Maria corrected, entering with a beautiful pearl necklace. These were my mother's. Something old. She fastened them around Elena's neck. My son is not an easy man to love. But you, Mija, you see him. The real him. That's why I know you'll be happy together. Elena hugged her future mother-in-law, overwhelmed with gratitude. Thank you for accepting me into your family. Thank you for loving my boy the way he deserves to be loved. The wedding was held in the garden of the Salvatore estate, transformed into a romantic wonderland with thousands of white roses, string lights, and an arbor covered in trailing vines. 200 guests filled the space, Dante's business associates, family members, friends. Elena had been worried about meeting so many people from his world, but Dante had insisted on keeping it personal, intimate despite the size. As Elena walked down the aisle on Carmen's arm, she saw only one person. Dante stood at the altar in a black tuxedo, and the expression on his face when he saw her made every worry, every fear, every doubt worth it. He looked at her like she was his entire world, which, according to the vows he'd written and insisted on reciting first, was exactly how he felt. Elena, Dante said, his voice rough with emotion, I've spent most of my life building walls, keeping people at a distance, believing that power meant being alone. Then you walked into my life, literally walked into me, actually, and everything changed. You're brave when I'm cautious, optimistic when I'm cynical, gentle when I forget to be. You challenge me, support me, and love me despite knowing exactly who and what I am. I promise to protect you, partner with you, and spend every day trying to be worthy of you. I promise to be honest, even when it's hard. And I promise to love you until my last breath, and probably beyond that because I'm too stubborn to stop. Elena was crying before he finished, and when it was her turn, she could barely speak through the tears. Dante, when I met you, I was lost. I thought I had my life figured out, but I was just surviving, not living. You showed me what it means to be truly seen, truly valued, truly loved. You're complex and frustrating and sometimes infuriatingly overprotective, the guests laughed, but you're also the best man I've ever known. You make me braver, stronger, happier. I promise to stand beside you through every challenge. I promise to be your partner in every sense of the word. And I promise to love you with everything I am, for as long as we both shall live." When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, Dante pulled Elena into a kiss that was probably too passionate for a family event, but Elena couldn't bring herself to care. This was her life now, full of passion, risk, and overwhelming love. The reception was a blur of dancing, toasts, and joy. Marco gave a speech about how Dante had been insufferably grumpy until Elena showed up and fixed his personality. Isabella told embarrassing stories that had Maria laughing until she cried. Even Victor Kozlov showed up with a generous gift and a nod of respect. But the moment Elena would remember forever was late in the evening, when Dante pulled her away from the party to a quiet corner of the garden. "I have something for you," he said, producing an envelope. A wedding gift. Inside, Elena found documents, legal papers that made her co-owner of all Dante's legitimate businesses. Equal partnership, equal say, equal everything. "Dante, this is too much." "It's not enough," he interrupted. "You're my wife, Elena. That means what's mine is yours. Legally, officially, in every way that matters." He cupped her face. "Besides, you've already made these businesses more profitable than I ever did. Consider it compensation for putting up with me." Elena laughed, kissing him softly. "I'd put up with you for free, you know." "I know. That's why I love you." They stayed there for a long time, wrapped in each other's arms under the stars, while music and laughter floated from the party. Elena thought about where she'd been a year ago, fired, humiliated, lost. She thought about where she was now, married to the most powerful man in the city, surrounded by family, living a life she'd never imagined possible. "What are you thinking?" Dante asked. "That I'd spill champagne on you 1,000 more times if it meant ending up here." Dante laughed, the real laugh that he reserved only for her, unguarded and genuine. "Then it's a good thing I've stopped wearing Armani to charity galas. Now I wear suits I don't mind ruining. Very practical. I'm learning from the best." He pulled her closer, his voice dropping to that intimate tone that still made her shiver. "Ready to start our honeymoon, Mrs. Salvatore?" "Mrs. Salvatore," Elena repeated, testing the name. "I like the sound of that." "Good. Because you're stuck with it now." As they walked back toward the party, hand in hand, Elena realized that this was just the beginning. There would be challenges ahead. Dante's world would always have dangers, complications, moments that tested them. But they would face them together, as partners, as equals, as two people who'd chosen each other against all odds. And in the end, that was the only story that mattered. They said the girl who falls for the dangerous man either gets her heart broken or gets killed. But they forgot the third option, the one where the dangerous man isn't dangerous to her at all. Where he's her greatest protector, her fiercest advocate, her truest love. Where together, they build something neither could have created alone. Elena Martinez had been fired in front of her ex-boyfriend, humiliated and defeated. But then a billionaire took her side. And that moment, that single act of protection, changed everything. Because sometimes, the right person enters your life at exactly the right moment. And when they do, all you have to do is be brave enough to take their hand.